What the fuck is the word, chat? Turn me the fuck up! We got him in the pen in New York! I ain't gonna lie, fam. Venezuela gonna get restored, fam. I know a lot of people don't like Trump, but he did his thing, man. 20 years in narco-trafficante dictatorship. I'm happy for the change, guys. I'm excited to see. Let's react right now to see exactly what happened. How did he get arrested? What happened? I'm about to react to it right now, so jumping right into it, all right?
Attorney General Pam Bondi announced a short time ago Maduro and his wife have been indicted in federal court on charges including narco-terrorism. There will be more details this morning at a news conference at Mar-a-Lago. We've got Natalie Brand traveling with the president in Florida with the latest. Natalie, good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Michael and Adriana. U.S. officials tell CBS News that Maduro was captured by the U.S. military's elite Delta Force. President Trump on social media early this morning confirmed what he called a large-scale and successful strike.
Gimme, like, how
Videos
can we make
posted
money
to social media show the scenes from Venezuela as explosions were reported at 2 a.m. local time in the capital of Caracas. U.S. officials tell CBS News President Trump ordered strikes on sites inside the country early Saturday morning, including military facilities.
In 2 days.
In a statement, the Venezuelan government said it repudiates and denounces to the international community the very serious military aggression by the U.S. government.
I want you to be a boss like me.
President Nicolas Maduro told state TV he's open to talking to the U.S. on drug trafficking, oil, and migration issues. The Trump administration has accused Maduro of being aligned with drug cartels and gangs designated by the U.S. as terrorist organizations. The Trump administration has spent months ramping up pressure on the Maduro regime. Last month, President Trump ordered a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela. A massive military buildup of 15,000 American troops in the Caribbean includes 11 Navy ships led by the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier. Marines aboard the USS Iwo Jima have been conducting live-fire exercises, and stealth fighter jets have been deployed to Puerto Rico. On Monday, President Trump confirmed the first known U.S. strike inside Venezuela, saying an alleged drug-related site was targeted.
They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area.
But he did not confirm reports that the CIA carried out that strike.
Well, I don't want to say that. I know exactly who it was, but I don't want to say who it was.
This week, there were also more deadly strikes on alleged drug boats off the coast of Venezuela.
What's the
That brought the total to more than 30 strikes on vessels, killing at least 115. For weeks, Democratic lawmakers and even some Republicans have questioned the strategy.
It's a completely
They took that bastard down, guys. Let's keep reacting to it. Let me know what you guys feel. Let me know how you guys feeling in the motherfucking chat. Talk to me.
And lawmakers on Capitol Hill, even allies of the president, have said they want more information from the administration about what comes next and the end game. Senator Mike Lee of Utah this morning on social media posted that he had a conversation with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who told him Maduro was arrested to stand trial on criminal charges in the United States and that the military action was deployed to protect and defend those executing the arrest warrant overnight. We are expecting to hear many more details from the president himself. A news conference is scheduled for 11 a.m. Eastern at Mar-a-Lago. Michael.
And we will be keeping tabs on that. Natalie in West Palm Beach, thank you. But here's a closer look at Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela's leader has been in power since 2013. And the U.S. does not formally recognize Maduro as the head of state and hasn't for years. Maduro was charged with narco-terrorism and corruption back in 2020. And there was a reward for $50 million for his arrest. Now, the State Department warned U.S. citizens in Venezuela to shelter in place this morning. And the U.S. Embassy in Colombia is warning Americans not to travel to Venezuela. For more, let's go to Lilia Luciano, who joins us from the Dominican Republic. Lilia, good morning.
Good morning to you, Michael.
Clock it, bitch.
The situation in Venezuela right now could turn very volatile. I have been hearing reports from people who are truly afraid that any expression of support or even sharing the videos of these strikes that they themselves documented could make them a target of the regime. So far, since these strikes took place, we have heard from the Minister of Defense in Venezuela, who declared a state of emergency, a state of exception. He said that every military force in Venezuela will be.
I ain't gonna lie. I feel like a lot of Latino people in Venezuela, a lot of people in Latino America, to be exact,
people to not fall into
at least like the generation that's our dads and our moms.
The Minister of
they went through a lot of
popular Minister
trauma,
of Justice, basically
a lot of trauma, a lot of maybe their dads beating their moms. That's very common in Latino culture. I don't condone any of that.
But people in Venezuela, who
it's just crazy. And then even like I can speak for Venezuela because I'm Venezuelan, and that's where my mom and that's where my mom's from, and my dad is from Colombia.
The actions of the United States
is the trauma that they've been passing the last 20 years, the aggression, the dictatorship. It changed how people, like perceive and act. Like they gotta be more animal. You feel me? So it's like now that Venezuela
very recently is
slowly coming back to its normal state. It's probably going to take a year to 3 years to really fully get there.
We're willing to
it's going to be a lot more calmness and peace, in Latino America, because they're really cracking down on that. Because if you really think about it,
there may be an expectation that
exactly, yes,
there is an opposition
and it really comes from Colombia.
Election last year, according to the voter tallies that they presented,
they're cracking down on that because they're coming to America making money, and then we don't roll with that. We make money
as the legitimate government of
our president makes money because he really like that. He's not trying to sell drugs like all these Latino presidents.
There are armed groups. There are armed guerrillas, and the government of Colombia. I spoke yesterday with the Minister of Defense of Colombia, which
he could change Latino America and Americanize it in a way where it feels safe. It doesn't feel dangerous.
To both deal with any possible migration crisis that could emerge now after what happened last night because of the bombings or the taking of Maduro, or because they fear that those armed groups, the armed guerrillas, in particular the ELN from Colombia, which has been historically allied with forces in Venezuela, could retaliate.
Bro, he was trying to get the Chinese government to come here and fuck shit up.
The opposition has not wanted to say anything. They have not responded to my request for comment yet. I assume they're waiting to hear from President Trump. But it's moving fast.
It is indeed. Lilia Luciano, thank you so much for your reporting. I've been following it all. CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd joins us now. She served as former Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism at the Department of Homeland Security. Sam, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So how precedented is a move like this from the U.S., and should Congress have been involved in the decision to do it?
Well, the Trump administration has said for several months that they don't need congressional authority to engage in military strikes against alleged drug smugglers. They have cited the president's constitutional authority as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Army and Navy under Article 2 of the Constitution, whereas many others have cited Article 1 of the Constitution and Congress's inherent responsibility to declare war. So that's a legal issue that's outstanding. But at the same time, Congress will be responsible, of course, for approving any funds that will be needed for further deployments in and around Venezuela and any stabilization needs on the ground. Not to mention the precedent of a president invading another country, engaging in these strikes, and exfiltrating a foreign leader absent congressional authority. That's a checks and balances issue with serious repercussions going forward. There is precedent. Back in the 80s, the United States, for example, did capture via Delta forces the leader of Panama and bring him back to the United States to stand trial. So there is some precedent there, Adriana.
Well, Sam, Utah Senator Mike Lee says Secretary of State Marco Rubio expects no further action in Venezuela now that Maduro is in custody. But even if the White House is saying this is over, how will Venezuela react to this? And should Americans be concerned about possible escalation or retaliation?
Well, I don't think there will be one reaction by Venezuela. Venezuelans are not a monolithic entity. Instead, what we have to wait and see, and what we just don't know, is whether there have been any conversations through covert channels, for example, with members of Maduro loyalists to talk to them about de-escalation and leaving power. and or any conversations with opposition leaders about stepping in to run the country. Under the Venezuelan constitution, ostensibly the vice president should take over. But what we don't know, again, if there have been discussions about who is going to run Venezuela now that Maduro is gone, whether with Maduro loyalists, with the opposition, and or with neighboring countries like Colombia, like others, who could be critical in helping to instill a sense of calm and stabilization in an incredibly chaotic situation.
And Sam, what was your reaction when you saw the news that Maduro was in custody? And if you could imagine, what it was like behind the scenes, how complex is an operation like this?
Well, I think certainly many breathed a sigh of relief that Maduro's reign of human rights abuses, democratic backsliding, narcotics trafficking, and more are over. At the same time, this was an incredibly complicated military operation, likely with a broad range of military assets backed up by seriously good intelligence on Maduro's whereabouts. So kudos to the folks that pulled it off. But it is truly mind-boggling that the United States launched this operation in Venezuela without congressional authorization, without a UN Security Council resolution. And that does open up a Pandora's box when it comes to precedent going forward. So while Maduro was an illegitimate leader doing very bad things, this was an unprecedented operation, and without the right follow-through could lead to a more chaotic situation than currently exists.
And Sam, where do you think that the U.S. would take Maduro?
They could take him a number of places, Adriana. I think that ultimately the goal is to have him stand trial in the United States. He was indicted in 2020 on a range of narcotics and other charges. But behind the scenes, ostensibly, there's a law enforcement angle to this, where to take Maduro, where to have him stand trial. Certainly what government will be functioning today now that Maduro is no longer there. And further, what happens to Venezuela's vast resources, its oil, its gold, its mineral deposits, and other matters. And so those behind-the-scenes conversations, that wargaming, Adriana, not the military side, but the stabilization side, oftentimes accompanies the discussions and the wargaming on the actual military operation. We just don't know what's happening.
Yo, chat, turn me up. How you feel about the Venezuelan situation
this morning?
Yo, Jeremy, you still in the chat?
All right, Sam Vinaigrette, thanks so much for joining us. And we want to turn now to Ed O'Keefe, our senior White House and political correspondent. He is in our Washington newsroom. Ed, I know you've been talking with your White House sources all morning. What are you hearing in Washington?
Well, Michael, just keep in mind, the president has been saying for months that this kind of attack or operation inside Venezuela was possible. And we know, or CBS News has learned, that the president had given the green light to conduct land strikes in Venezuela at some point here in recent days before this actual operation occurred. Part of the issue in recent days has been the weather. There was authority to do this as early as Christmas Day, but there were actually U.S. military operations that day against ISIS targets in Nigeria, and so the focus shifted to that and then back to Venezuela. And for several days now, there have been concerns about the weather, and now we understand why. It was if it was that they had to go in
good that you're trauma dumped and you're able to really talk to me and tell me how you feel. I'm here for you, like I told you always.
And favorable weather conditions to do that, and so that gives you a sense of how long the White House and the Pentagon have been preparing for this. What's telling, too, is the fact that he says here law enforcement operations or law enforcement was involved. As you've been discussing with Sam and Natalie and Lilia, the idea now that he would be brought to the United States to face the charges he was indicted on back in 2020
there's a few females
mirrors what happened
like
35 years ago today, when the Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega was arrested in Panama and brought to the United States to face.
It's just the guys that they're trying to pursue.
Maduro faces similar ones.
A friend, they'll treat him like a friend.
Similar to the way it did
friends
for Noriega,
don't pay for everything. They 50-50.
Charges here. You know, could be.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, I have friends that at first that's how they were,
plays out in Venezuela, and we'll hear later
it didn't end up working in our favor, and we just ended up being friends, and they're actually really good friends.
Apparently, telling Republican lawmakers this morning, the military aspect of this.
Oh yeah, we'll go eat.
So, Ed, some lawmakers in Congress have been in support of this. Others on both sides of the aisle are concerned about whether it's legal.
I never say because I'm a man, I'll pay.
What political ramifications might this have for the president,
it's that
both
thing
in
where, like,
Congress
that
and
video I
among
showed
the
you,
American
like,
public?
you just do it because
we've been polling this, Adriana,
that's your
for
friend.
several
Like you
months
fuck with
now,
that person.
and
You
it's
feel me?
telling
Like if
how
you go out with your
deeply
girls,
skeptical
if you go
the
out with your
country is
girls,
about this across
if
partisan
you go out with your
lines.
girls,
Consider,
are y'all splitting the bill all the time, or sometimes you be spotting them, right? Like you'll show them love,
the president
right?
needs to explain what's going on in Venezuela. When we asked about it in November, 70% said they'd oppose military action against the country.
Oh, okay. No, I guess you just turn on stingy bitches then.
Why military action is necessary, and 3 in 4 said the president would need congressional approval before taking military action in Venezuela, including a majority of Republicans, which is why you saw this morning several of them on social media at least express concerns about this. But we're also seeing the Secretary of State calling around to some of his former Republican colleagues in the Senate, at least Mike Lee, Tom Cotton, head of the Intelligence Committee, to say, this is why we did it, this is why we believe it was legal or constitutional. We'll see whether they stand by them in the coming hours, depending on what the president says later.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much.
Attorney General Pam.
The United States hit Venezuela with a large-scale strike early Saturday and said its president, Nicolas Maduro, had been captured and flown out of the country. Here's what to know. Multiple explosions and low-flying aircraft were seen in Caracas in the early hours of Saturday morning. Maduro's government immediately accused the US of an imperialist attack on civilian and military installations. US President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that Maduro had been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. He added that the operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. The apparent attack itself lasted less than 30 minutes. Trump said in his social media post that the strike was carried out successfully. It comes after the Trump administration has escalated pressure on Maduro, who has decried US military operations against alleged drug traffickers as a thinly veiled effort to oust him from power. It was not immediately clear who was running the country, and Maduro's whereabouts were not immediately known.
Lying at the foot of the Avila Mountain, Caracas is a special place for all Venezuelans. It's been described as the country's beautiful but neglected capital city. Behind that mountain you can see is the Caribbean.
Venezuela has this place called Angel Falls where the movie Up takes place. That's where they end up landing in the last location.
We, throughout this visit, have
it's in Venezuela. It's called Angel Falls. It's literally a waterfall that falls off the hill down to like nothing.
Mainly we've been talking to ordinary people to find out what life is like here in this country. This is a story about life in Venezuela today. Everything seems pretty normal on the streets. Markets and shops are busy.
Yeah, Venezuelan people are fucking crazy.
The US is targeting narco trafficking. It says it comes from Venezuela. And President Trump has made it clear the current government should give up power.
No, you are.
The nominal president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is undoubtedly under pressure from America, but he's doing his best to carry on as normal. We watched him dancing and singing with the crowds at one of his latest rallies. His supporters, who are largely bussed into this rally in Caracas, are made up of community groups, militias, former soldiers, and government workers.
I never heard about it being dangerous in Peru. It's only Colombia and Venezuela.
Really quite small.
And then like, I think Guatemala or Mexico.
This is one of the only places we can talk to government supporters
without
running the
Brazil's
risk
pretty
of
dangerous too.
by the country's security services.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Brazil's like the only place in South America that they speak a completely different language.
Maduro's supporters told us that the threats and demands for change by the United States should be faced down by Venezuelans.
Ellos siempre intentarán apoderarse de las riquezas que tiene Venezuela, pero no podrán, porque aquí hay un pueblo rodilla en tierra dispuesto a pelear.
Sabemos que Venezuela tiene las riquezas minerales, petroleras y el mejor clima de Venezuela. Sabemos que quieren venir por nosotros, pero nos estamos organizando cada vez más.
Ellos quieren venir a la fuerza, que vengan. Pero si quieren venir de buena manera, hablar con nosotros, hablar con el presidente, ahí está.
Bro, este muchacho está loco, bro. Bro, these guys are brainwashed, bro. These guys are brainwashed, bro. Yeah, Caracas is the capital, but I'm watching this video now. These guys are cooked. This guy's like, oh, like,
as the rain closed
he's
in,
like, yeah, if Trump wants to come, this is before it happened. I'm watching videos now. I went on live right now. No one can hear you though, but I'm live right now. And
well, there are still many people who have kept faith with the revolution.
They're dead ass like saying,
the results of the last
oh, like if he wants to come, then come. I'm like, bro, these people are brainwashed. Like, you kill me, talk to me, dude. Yo, we're gonna play that game after this little segment. But right now,
Nicolas Maduro and his government.
We looking at the news of what happened in Venezuela because I am Venezuelan. Yo, bro, 20 euros. If you do a flip right now, give me the 20 euros first as subs, and I'll do the backflip. I'll do the backflip, right? And if it's not a backflip, it's gonna be a cartwheel because I don't want to hurt myself. But send it first, fam. Send it first, cuz.
Or super moustache in English.
With his wife at his side, you say you work out what, like 7?
Capitalism and dirty tricks by the United States.
Like what,
in other
like
episodes,
6, 7?
He promotes unity with his country's allies, notably Russia
because
and
it's
China.
you, baby. I'm trying to scam. I'm trying to scam. I need content, man. Why does everyone have a brain? I'm trying to scam. Bro, what are you talking about, bro? You ain't gonna scam me, cuz. Send them subs in, cuz. If not, we ain't doing shit, bro.
It's the internal one that is, in reality, his biggest problem.
Boy, I'm not. We should go to Caracas.
Power, he promised to continue with the vision of a socialist state.
No. I probably wouldn't go until like a year. Actually, I'd rather go to Margarita with you, which is like I don't know if it's like a kind of like a visa, but in Venezuela.
Life on the streets, searching through rubbish for anything of value.
I'm super invested into that place. I'm looking to get. I'm really looking. I'm gonna start looking into properties.
The norm. And corruption at every level of society, from the very top to the very bottom, is endemic.
Yeah, that happened right when they linked with the Chinese government, and then they're about to link with the Russian government within this week.
Legal and political institutions. It's hardly a great surprise that Venezuela is on its
apparently
knees.
the Russians sent supplies to Venezuela.
Filming anything that could
like all the guns that Venezuelans have is Russian-made guns.
Danger.
Everyone's in Venezuela says because I told you, like Venezuela's like Dubai, like Saudi Arabia. They're very rich in minerals and oil and petroleum. Like
so
they could dead ass be like Dubai. Like this shit looks like fucking favelas in Brazil. Like this shit could really, like Venezuela could be like a very prospering state or country.
The booming sounds of Latino music resonate through the streets and the alleyways of the poorest communities of Caracas. They're called barrios. Vast numbers of people live in these cramped neighborhoods built into the sides of mountains. Some, like Orlando, are disillusioned. The 71-year-old now lives in abject poverty.
Oh, Trump doesn't want people going over there?
An injury means he can't work at all now. So he's dependent on help from the community. There's no social services to look after him. He's on his own. His family has left the country. That's as common as the poverty here. All Orlando has now are memories of Venezuela's past.
Oye, maravilla. La comida barata. Me ganaron real.
I didn't know that until now. You just put me on.
Ayudando a llegar a 90 todos diarios. Yo cansaba. Comida barata. Había trabajo, bus. Sobitos, son real, todo lleno real, plata.
Yeah. Oh, you say you have Brazilian friends, right?
Muy vida.
These barrios should be the stalwart for Venezuela's socialist revolution and government. But the 2024
Brazil is in the best place, to be honest.
An astonishing collapse in support for the government in these places.
But you also said that you needed a visa to get into Brazil.
Cast a vote.
We're told by people who live in this area that they actually wanted to vote for the opposition in last.
Wait, did you say where's your tooth?
But didn't. There's a couple of reasons for it. One, they say they
what the fuck did you just say? I knew you put some shit in your tooth, cuz.
Supporters who obviously live amongst them. Secondly, perhaps this is more important.
Bro, your teeth are too white. They look done. I'm telling you. You don't want to admit it, but I know you did something with your teeth, cuz.
Wouldn't be honoured.
Away from the narrow streets of the barrios Others live in social housing, built in the heyday of the socialist
what do you do to make him that white?
Chavez,
My teeth are white, but I feel like they could be whiter, so it's like, what do you do?
While the eyes of the world may be watching on, waiting to see if the United States attacks Venezuela or its government collapses, the reality we have found during our time here is that people are more interested in surviving economically than worrying over what might or might not happen.
About a quarter of the Venezuelan population have actually left the country. And people here are saying that their loved ones are watching the build-up of American forces off the coast of Venezuela and across the Caribbean. And they're ringing here and saying, listen, family, let's see, perhaps you need to
We're not even talking about it. What are you talking about?
They're not feeling in any danger at all. In fact, they're saying life carries on as normal.
On the streets of Caracas, markets in some parts of town are still buzzing.
And then what was it? Chicken sandwich?
Shopping districts in the capital. Jason runs a fast food stall here.
Top cheese,
he says he's not thought about it. The only thing he worries about, he says, is making a living.
Remember the work, I can't even save it. Bro, I deadass was standing in the club, she came straight to me, you're fine, I like what I see. Like, that's what happens all the time, I'm telling you.
Many don't think anything will happen with the United States.
I don't do shit, I just stand. Really, I'm the mirror, bitch. I'm the mirror, bitch. I'm the mirror like the Venezuelans.
While nobody knows what's going to happen next, the state security services are on high alert. This is the presidential palace of Miraflores in Caracas. It's heavily guarded. Filming any state security is extremely difficult. We could only do it as we drove through the city. This is a police state.
No, you could just call me. Oh, whenever, right?
Arbitrary detentions are a constant. It's how the government.
Finally, bro, that bitch talks so fucking much, bro. I'm trying to chat with y'all and shit. I don't want to be rude either, bro.
In January 2025, thousands of opposition supporters gathered to protest the swearing in of Maduro as president. They came to support the figurehead of the opposition, Maria Corina Machado, the latest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. She waved and addressed the crowds from the back of a lorry. This was the last anti-government rally in Venezuela. Within minutes of this being filmed, she was arrested, later released, but forced into hiding. This protest led to a wave of politically motivated detentions by the government. Hundreds of people were rounded up and now languish in jail.
She got balls, fam. She got balls to do that.
But it's been going on for years. Indeed, since 2014, there have been over 18,000 politically motivated arrests.
Okay.
Like, is there a vent here, bro? I just got mad cold, bro. Yo, Jacoby, you still here in the chat?
You see?
All right.
Oh my God, bro.
Yeah.
Gonzalo Himiob is a lawyer for Foro Penal. It's an NGO that tracks the detention of people and represents them in court. The sheer number of cases on their books.
Okay, Jacoby, look, we learning together, bro.
Right. This is state-organized mass suppression of all opposition, ruling by fear.
I would say 99.99% of the cases of the people that has been arrested since 2024 to this date are now in trial or are being investigated in a specific jurisdiction, which is the terrorism jurisdiction in Venezuela. So this is a very clear maneuver from the government in order to establish this narrative that everybody that is against them or protests against the government is a terrorist.
What have people who've been charged with terrorism or whatever, what have they actually been, where are they arrested? Is it mainly because they've been demonstrating or they've been on the streets?
Well, we have several different categories, okay, of people. The first one is the people that is as an individual a political very relevant person.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case it is very clear that they want to neutralize these people, and they neutralize it using the criminal process in order to keep them in jail and not in the streets, you know, talking to the people. The second group we have is the major group, which is the people that demonstrate, that protests, okay? They are not in jail specifically because they represent an individual risk for power. They are in jail because the government wants to send a very clear message to the people that protest, and this message is if you participate in a demonstration, in a protest against the government, you are likely to be arrested, and we can do with you whatever we want.
But I heard so many stories, like, if you speak against them, they just arrest your ass. They don't give a fuck about you.
People go about their business of trying to get by. But it is a veneer. People are genuinely scared of stepping out of line and of being arrested and disappeared by the security services. Above all, during our time here, we got the sense that barely anyone but the most optimistic believe anything will change. They say they're exhausted by making ends meet year after year, forever watched over by a state whose stranglehold on dissent is, if anything, getting more determined as it clings on to power in a country as beautiful but neglected as its capital.
Wow. So what do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about this, man?
Muy buenos días al pueblo de Venezuela. Estamos acá en la ciudad capital, en Caracas, luego de haber hecho una evaluación de los daños causados por el ataque criminal, el ataque terrorista contra nuestro pueblo, contra el suelo patrio, contra las instalaciones eléctricas, contra la revolución bolivariana y contra aquellos que inclusive no tienen nada que ver con la revolución bolivariana. Es un ataque contra Venezuela, contra la República Bolivariana de Venezuela. Las fuerzas militares, las fuerzas policiales, acá conmigo, un grupo de ellos, el pueblo, presto para cualquier situación, presto para cualquier hecho que pretenda y la tranquilidad de nuestro país. Y desde aquí, desde este hermoso lugar, llamo a la calma a nuestro pueblo. Confíen en el liderazgo, confíen en la dirigencia del alto mando político, militar, para la situación que estamos atravesando. Mucha calma, que nadie caiga en el desespero, que nadie caiga en facilitarle las cosas al enemigo invasor, al enemigo terrorista que nos atacó cobardemente. Que nadie le facilite las cosas. No es la primera lucha, no es la primera batalla que contra este pueblo han emprendido algunos, creyendo que nos van a derrotar, creyendo que van a mancillar el honor y la dignidad del soldado, del policía, del venezolano de a pie. No es la primera. Hemos sabido sobrevivir a todas estas circunstancias.
President Donald Trump has announced that the United States intends to run Venezuela after it carried out a large-scale attack and claimed to have captured its president, Nicolas Maduro, flying him out of the country with his wife. Explosions were heard in the capital, Caracas, this morning, as well as in other Venezuelan cities. Nicolas Maduro has already been charged in New York with...
What, like this? To that man! To that man! To it! They talk about, hold on. Fam, I'm hype. They took him, they put him in his place, and they let him know what, chat? What they let him know? They let him know, don't play with America. Cause we gonna smack your ass, little boy. The light will always come to the darkness. It will always shine upon what's dark. So I'm happy that there's change coming.
Weapons offences.
As long as there's change.
Well, at a news conference at his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida and flanked by members of his top administration team, including Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio, President Trump said the United States will be running Venezuela until such time as a safe and orderly transition can be achieved.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen.
President Trump there at his news conference, he also said that no US service personnel were killed in that operation in Venezuela. Also said that the US is ready to stage a second and much larger attack on the country if that were necessary. Our South America correspondent Ione Wells has more details on what happened.
Handcuffed, blindfolded, captured from his country. This is Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, being sent to the US after being seized.
Por eso que te agarraron, marico, porque eres una lacra. Lo que tú eres una lacra. Cochino lo que tú eres, lacra. Por eso que te agarraron, marico, porque eres una lacra.
By US forces.
There's a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens.
The capture led many wondering who would now run Venezuela. And then, this.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Washington says Maduro will face charges including conspiracy to commit narco-terrorism and import cocaine. His seizure was part of a huge military operation. Venezuela's capital, Caracas, woke to the sound of the city under attack. Helicopters, flames, explosions. These were strikes on the city's key military sites. Eyewitnesses woke in the early hours to the sound of booms. This marks the biggest US military intervention in the region in decades. For months, Washington has sent troops, warships and aircraft to the Caribbean. It has seized oil tankers near Venezuela and carried out dozens of strikes on alleged drug boats, killing at least 110 people. Operations, it says, are part of an armed conflict against traffickers. But legal experts say it may breach the laws of war. The US has long accused Nicolas Maduro of running a criminal network, claims he denies. Just days ago, he said he was open to talks.
If they want to seriously discuss an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we're ready. If they want Venezuelan oil, is Venezuela ready for US investments? Like with Chevron, whenever, wherever, and however they want.
What remains of Venezuela's government says it will fight, but the US wants regime change. And today, the US showed once again it will use whatever force it takes to get what it wants. Ione Wells, BBC News.
Let's go!
Well, let's talk more about Nicolas Maduro. The last few hours have seen a remarkable change in his fortunes. This is believed to be Nicolas Maduro's final public appearance before US military forces launched that large-scale strike on Caracas and captured him. Here he was meeting the Chinese special envoy on Friday. It was said to be a cordial meeting. Mr. Maduro received a decorative vase. He presented the Chinese diplomat with a painting in return. But then, a few hours later on, Donald Trump was sharing a new picture on Truth Social that he said showed Nicolas Maduro, the former Venezuelan leader, on board the USS Iwo Jima. That's the vessel that he told Fox News was bringing the Venezuelan leader to the United States to face various charges. Well, let's hear some of that remarkable press conference that President Trump held in Florida, where he began his remarks with this description of the U.S. military action in Venezuela.
Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. It's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens.
So that's just an excerpt of Donald Trump's press conference in which he gave details of the U.S. military action in Venezuela. Let's go live to Washington, join our chief presenter there, Sumi Somaskanda. Sumi, we saw some pictures of Donald Trump and his top team, still pictures of them watching events in Venezuela as they unfolded in real time from Florida. They said it was, Donald Trump said it was like watching television, and he described this military action as a stunning achievement for the United States military.
That's right, Ben, and we got plenty of detail as well from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, who was on hand for that press conference. And he delivered some details on how exactly the operation proceeded. He said it was a complex air, ground, and space operation. He said that this had been in the planning for several weeks and that U.S. military had, quote, watched, waited, prepared. We remained patient and professional. Essentially, we understand that this operation, we're looking at pictures here of President Trump watching this operation. He said that they had arrived with air cover from the U.S. Air Force, that a special team from the U.S. military arrived at a compound in Caracas where Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was with his wife, Celia, who was also captured, that they arrived there at around 1 a.m. Eastern time in the U.S. And what he called an apprehension force descended into that compound, moved with, quote, speed and precision, isolated the area, and then apprehended the, quote, indicted persons. Now, they did say that the helicopters that were carrying this special Delta force, that they came under fire and responded, that one aircraft was hit but remained flyable, also came back to the aircraft carrier. And they said that after securing Maduro and his wife, the aircraft provided cover for them to depart. they were taking some fire. The force successfully was able to return. And we learned that just about an hour, 2 hours later, that the force was leaving Venezuela with the indicted persons on board, and then they were put on the USS Iwo Jima. So truly an extraordinary operation, Ben, as we've been hearing from how exactly it played out. We heard a number of details as well about the types of aircraft involved, F-22s, F-35s, B-1 bombers, and remotely piloted drones. All of this points to the fact that this was a massive operation, as we heard, that was planned for several weeks, as we understand, all the way back to August. And that is all the more significant as we see these images of this makeshift situation room, if you will, of the defense secretary and the CIA head and the Secretary of State and President Trump all standing there together. President Trump had been questioned several times, what is the aim here? Is it regime change? He was quite vague about whether that was indeed the aim. And indeed, I spoke to a number of Republican members of Congress, Ben, on this question. They said that is simply too soon to say whether this is regime change. But in the end, we saw Mr. Maduro, of course, arrested, apprehended, and now being brought to the U.S. to face charges.
And history tells us that it's one thing to topple a regime, to remove its leader, but it's quite another thing to then run the country, as Donald Trump says America is now going to do.
Indeed. You know, I put that question precisely to Republican Congressman Michael McCaul. He used to run the Foreign Affairs Committee. And this was a few weeks ago before this entire operation took place. And he said, look, the U.S. doesn't have a particularly strong history of military interventions in Latin America. And this is going to be the question, and one that is being asked, has been asked immediately after hearing from President Trump in that press conference that the U.S. plans to, quote, run Venezuela. What does that look like? How long would this involvement be? Would this involve U.S. troops on the ground, boots on the ground? He said, we're not afraid of using boots on the ground. Who in the U.S. would be involved? He referred to the people standing behind him. So the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, well, we know that he has already spoken to the Venezuelan vice president. Will they be working with her? And critically, Ben, you know, the opposition in Venezuela, we know that Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize. There are various members of the opposition that have been strongly lobbying the Trump administration to take strong action against Venezuela. And yet when he was asked about her role today, President Trump, as you noted earlier, said, well, she doesn't necessarily have the respect that she needs. So what role would the opposition play in any sort of transition? And what will that mean for the U.S. as well? All of these questions remain unanswered.
And so in terms of political reaction to what has happened in the United States, just give us an idea of what people have been saying, because there's been some pretty strong opposition from the Democrats.
Yeah, perhaps unsurprisingly, the reaction has been largely partisan. We've seen a number of Republican members of Congress saying Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate leader. He is one who had been trafficking drugs into the U.S., and it was high time for the U.S. to remove him from power. Democrats here are saying this is simply illegal internationally. By international law, this was an illegal move. And also, the U.S. did not sign up for getting involved in a long or prolonged engagement with Venezuela, which includes running the country. And interesting to note that we saw the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, comment a little bit earlier in talking about his opposition to this. And he asked a few questions that I thought was interesting. He said, how many American troops will be on the ground in Venezuela? What does it mean for America to run Venezuela until a transition takes place? Were these military strikes about seizing foreign oil to benefit friends of the Trump administration? All of these points being asked by members of Congress. And perhaps most importantly, we've seen from numerous members of Congress, they wanted to demand that the president come to them for a war powers resolution for any sort of military action in Congress. Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said during that press conference, we didn't need to ask Congress for a war powers resolution. And he said this was a different mission. It was about arresting Maduro. That will be questioned this week on the Hill.
Damn. What the fuck is this? 5 million. FIFA gives Trump a gold pacifier and looming war on Venezuela. Gives John Iraq deja vu. Daily Show. Oh my God. Bro, I got 7 more hours and I'm fucking getting tired,
President
fam.
Donald Trump.
Why am I getting tired? I fucking feel, yo, Jacoby, you still here, bro? I'm tired, bro. Yo, I need to get something to get me up. Yo, this is how they celebrating Doral.
Gabriela Arzola. She is joining us live from Doral. She is outside in Arepaso, which we know is the mecca of the Venezuelan community there. And Gabby,
Seems pretty busy behind you, Gabby. It's 6 a.m. and people have been out there. Can you tell us about what you're seeing and how long you've been seeing people out there reacting to this news?
Guys, history is being made in real time. There are hundreds of people here in El Arepaso, which, like you said, has been the mecca for Venezuelans speaking out against injustices in their country for decades. I'm here joined by Edgar. Edgar has been here since he was 11 years old.
I'm
born and raised in Venezuela. Out here since early this morning. Tell me, why did you want to be out here?
Well, okay, before I begin, I just want to talk to you, America, and I hope you have your coffee when I tell you this, but these are great news. All eyes on Venezuela. These are historical news. This is history in the making. I mean, my chest, it feels like it's gonna explode with joy, because before I was even born, there have been struggles. My family has been fighting for so many years before I was even here. They have told me about it. They told me about a time where democracy existed, and now I can finally look forward to that.
Let's go!
That's just everything that I can ask for. And you know, I just want to tell you people, America, Venezuelans are good people. The greatest people that I know, I can vouch for them. We are good. We are working hard, and this is President Donald Trump and Maria Corina Machado just created an opportunity for us to begin working harder than ever, because that's what we have always been doing, but now we will be working in our country. But you know, we also have worked so hard here in the United States to build so much things, and I just want to thank you, America. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to work.
There's a lot of pride that comes with Venezuela. He actually wore this flag just like this for his college graduation.
I found that!
Just to show you how much love there is for this country that's gone through so much for so long. Being here has been incredible. People are dancing, people are cheering, and we've been here so many times, Christian, like you've said in the past, when there have been so many issues, and they would cheer, si se puede, si se puede. Now, en pudo. Yes.
Si se puede, si se pudo.
What do you think
Ahora
now
vamos a
that
Venezuela!
how people can move forward after this?
Well, that's where the insanity comes. You know, I plead, America, again, I plead for you, for mercy for us Venezuelans. People such as me, you know, I have been here almost my whole life, all of my youth. And I do believe that the future of Venezuelans is in Venezuela. But I also think that some of us and some people here also want to continue working here in the United States, building a beautiful nation. Well, Doral, I mean, this is the stronghold of Venezuelans, and it's a beautiful city. I recommend everybody to come here to Doral. I recommend everybody, if you're Venezuelan, everyone, come down here to El Arepaso. Yes, yeah, come celebrate with us. We love everybody because you, America, has loved us so much, so much. Thank you, America.
Edgar, thank you so much for sharing those sentiments. Guys, this is something that I find really interesting here. Everyone here, American, Venezuelan, have said they're so happy for the freedom that they experience here, and they just hope that freedom translates into their home country, Venezuela. All we've heard was freedom, freedom, freedom. Yes, we did it. Now we can continue to move forward. By no means are any of them saying, now comes the easy part. Certainly, the hard parts are on the way, but they're saying now is finally a step in the right direction that they've all been waiting for so long. I want to give you a little bit more of a scene setter here, guys. Look, people with flags, holding them up, holding them high. Hundreds of people here. Cars, playing music, everyone here dancing. It really is wonderful to see so many people coming together. There are a lot of emotions behind this. I mean, they're not just cheering because of what just happened today. This
comes from generations upon generations of stories of struggle, stories of hurt, stories also of hope for a better country and a better life for their family in Venezuela. Since I've been here, I've seen countless people FaceTiming their family members from Venezuela, checking off on their friends, we have had a lot of people checking up on their family. Thankfully, all of the FaceTimes have been answered. A lot of things we still do not know, but overall here the sentiment is hope. Like we said, we covered this in the past. A lot of times we've heard people cheer "Si se puede," and now they're saying
"Si se puede."
Now we did it, guys.
Gabby, it's so loud behind you that we actually we can hear you, but we can't hear you as clearly as we could maybe a half hour ago when we see the jubilation, right? The joy behind you of people that have been sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for this moment. Still unclear, you know, where things will go, if there in fact will be a regime change. And I don't want to sound negative because by all indication, that is where we're going, but there's a lot of question, a lot of concern. You see a lot of celebration behind you, but of course in Caracas, Venezuela, there is a lot of fear of what happens next.
Yes, Gabby, and have you felt that while you've been there interacting with people? Have you felt that there is any sense of fear, or you felt like it's just been right now everyone's staying pretty much positive?
Well, you know what, it's mixed, right? I'm glad you asked that. You know, there's a lot of emotions, like we said. Like I've mentioned, though, there are a lot of people that are FaceTiming, WhatsApping, trying to get in contact with their family, especially in Caracas. And overall, from the family that we did hear back from, they say that their families are okay. Obviously, still very much shaken with the strikes that happened early this morning, but overall, we have not heard yet of a report of a casualty or family members that are not answering them back. Actually, the opposite. We heard several family members in Venezuela that are celebrating at home quietly despite everything that's happening right now in their home country. So it is very interesting, but of course this is still very much developing. We'll be hearing more stories throughout the morning. So of course stay with us because we'll be here all day. Guys.
Thank you, Gabby, reporting live for us from Doral. We'll check back in with you later.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Through what we are seeking information that could lead towards his capture, and it may well be that the delay we're seeing since Trump's tweet in the early hours of this morning, his 74-word social media post, removed the extraordinary mystery, frankly, or the unresponsibility of exactly what was happening in the skies of Caracas. Very quickly, to explain that, as many suspected, it was the US military behind this. It now appears that potentially the delay may be about transferring Maduro inside American soil for when President Trump addresses the nation about this move, extraordinary as it is. But I think once perhaps for Trump allies...
Yeah, 'cause it's crazy, the video I played earlier, they're like, they're like, it was a terrorist attack by America, but bro, they've been smuggling drugs here for years. That's a whole terrorist in itself. Like, you're fucking up us Americans with drugs that shouldn't even be in here in the first place. So it's like, that's the real issue. And if they don't understand that, like I said, a lot of these people are brainwashed, fam. It's sad. It's sad.
Of removing Maduro, who has been an authoritarian dictator behind violence against protesters and opponents for 13 years. Once that fades, the hard questions now must be answered about what to do with Venezuela's crippled economy. That has been the reason why Maduro has needed to be authoritarian, the mismanagement of basic things like inflation foodstuffs that permeates that entire country. What happens now to Venezuela's military, heavily hit during this brief series of strikes? I should point out the explosions we've been seeing in these videos, utterly alien to life in sleepy, peaceful Caracas, will have terrified the millions who live there. What is the likely course for Venezuela's political elite? Is indeed Delcy Rodriguez the successor? Does she immediately seek a détente with the United States to prevent a similar abduction in the middle of the night occurring to her? These are all urgent questions, and I think the key thing here is for the United States to have plan for the aftermath of Maduro with the same efficiency, detail and resolve as they clearly planned his capture and abduction. The US military, very good at this sort of thing, be it bin Laden in Pakistan, Zawahiri, the Al-Qaeda leader in Afghanistan, Maduro, a man with lesser charges against him in Venezuela, but they fail repeatedly in what comes next. And I'm sure many in Venezuela will be deeply hoping that they now see some sort of future ahead of them where their economic and political problems become part of the United States' focus and they're not just left to see further collapse. A reminder, the United States, particularly the Trump administration, wants to see many of the hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans on US soil go home. And perhaps a calm and prosperous Venezuela would permit that to happen at a faster pace. But we are today in unprecedented territory. In Moscow and Beijing, they will be looking at how their ally, Maduro, is suddenly whisked away from a place where he should have felt security of diplomacy and the international world order. He may now soon be in
Russia, as I said a moment ago, is now asking for immediate clarification
Let's
on the US
go.
claims that it has captured Maduro. Nick Baton-Walsh, thanks so much. Joining us now is CNN White House reporter Kevin Attack. Kevin, again, we're going to hear from the president at 11 a.m. Eastern, 3 hours from now. But I understand you have some new information about how this unfolded. What do you know?
Yeah, and what we understand is that the president gave the green light for this operation several days ago. That's according to people familiar with the matter. It was carried out by the elite Delta Force in the U.S. Army. That's the same group that captured Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi some years ago. So a highly trained a force that went in to capture Maduro. They were tracking his location with the assistance of the CIA, and we know that the president had authorized the CIA to operate covertly inside of Venezuela, you know, some weeks ago. We saw some of what they were doing just this week when we learned about that strike on a dock facility that the president said was transporting drugs. But now we're getting a fuller picture of what precisely that agency was doing there. Now, the goal here is to try Maduro on
Yo, Millie, we about to frost this and then we're about to start playing some Walking Dead.
U.S. soil. We've been hearing that from officials. We just heard it explicitly from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who is citing that indictment in the Southern District of New York that was filed back in 2020. There was this bounty on Maduro, and what Bondi says is that both Maduro and his wife will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. But to be sure, there are plenty of questions here being raised by members of Congress. It does not appear as if the Trump administration briefed, you know, the relevant lawmakers or the relevant committees before taking that action. And this morning, it appears that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has been on the phone talking to senators to discuss some of what happened, and some of them are revealing a little bit about their discussion. You know, Mike Lee, the senator from Utah, said that the strikes that occurred in Venezuela were intended to protect the U.S. personnel who were capturing Maduro, that the president was relying on his Article 2 authority, essentially his authority as commander-in-chief to conduct foreign policy to carry out these strikes. And I think most critically, what Rubio told Lee was that he anticipates no further action in Venezuela now that Maduro is in U.S. custody. So this appears to be it for now, what we've seen overnight. You know, this is really the culmination of this months-long pressure campaign. There was, I think, some misgivings on the part of the president some months ago about where all of this was leading. We heard that from officials, that he had some reservations that this could potentially all backfire if Maduro was ousted from power, some questions about whether this would be effective, but clearly he has put those to the side and given the green light to go ahead. You know, I think President Trump is also of the era who will remember a mixed history of U.S. interventions in Latin America, including with the CIA. You know, today is 35 years exactly since the U.S. arrested the Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega at the Vatican Embassy in Panama. So, you know, there is a long, somewhat mixed history for the president to look back on here, but clearly eager to proclaim success in this particular mission, and I think eager to show that justice will be served for what they claim is a drug trafficking charge. You know, the objectives in all of this have always, in a way, led to regime change. That was what the president's ultimate goal was here. We heard that explicitly from Susie Wiles in that Vanity Fair interview. But you also saw a number of different sort of rationales that the president has laid out, whether it was curbing the flow of drugs, whether it was curbing the flow of migrants. You also hear the president talk quite a bit about the oil. Of course, Venezuela is sitting on the world's largest proven...
What's the word? Aliagla? Aliagla. We about to play a game after this. We've been talking about this for an hour. Shout out Millie, shout out Jake.